Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I did basically this kind of video roughly a year ago, maybe, where it was my autumn hopeful piles for that season. This video is very similar to that one in the sense that I am staying within that vein of hopeful reads rather than having a firm TBR pile. And it's actually kind of funny because next week's video, the 10 tips and tricks for getting out of a reading slump, that actually ended up being perfectly timed scheduling wise because I'm in a bit of a reading slump right now. I'm still reading, just very slowly and not at my usual pace. But with all that said, let's talk about this video. These are 11 books that I'm wanting to read in October and going into November. I'm not really putting pressure on myself to finish these in October or to finish this pile in October. Some of them are more prominent for October than others. First up is Volume 3 of The Remarried Empress by Elpha Tart. This is a webtoon turned graphic novel. I've been reading it as the graphic novel, although I may switch at some point to webtoon. We'll see. As I said, I want to read Volume 3 since I've already read Volumes 1 and 2, but I'm going to give the description on the back of Volume 1. Empress Navier and Emperor Sovishu? I'm saying that wrong and I'm so sorry. A match made in heaven. They were the two pillars of the land whom everyone believed would stand by each other through thick and thin until a chance encounter with a beautiful girl in the forest leaves the emperor smitten. Through hurt and betrayal, Navier is not one to waste time wallowing in despair, and when Sovishu requests a divorce, she has but one condition in return: permission to remarry the man of her choosing. So we basically get that whole climactic scene at the beginning where he's requesting the divorce and she's like, okay, I accept, but on the condition of I'm allowed to remarry. And then we see the man who she wants to remarry. Then we kind of go back in time to when the emperor meets this young girl. Everything starts going downhill. With that said, I want to catch up with the volumes that I have, and as I said, maybe turn to webtoon after I finish this one or get the 4th volume. We'll have to see. Next up, I want to read Inuyasha, the manga. As you can see here, I have the first 3 omnibus editions. Here's the first volume of the omnibus edition. Here's volume 1 omnibus edition, volume 2, and volume 3. But I do want to read these first 3 volumes. But I do want to read these first 3 omnibus volumes, omnibus editions, before I start getting more. Mainly because I want to at least get it started before I continue buying from the series. I've watched the anime so many times that hopefully the anime doesn't really follow the manga super closely. It might, which I won't be super disappointed by. In Inuyasha, we are following Kagome, who's a young girl, junior high age, who falls through a well on her family property. And she ends up getting transported back in time to feudal Japan. There she discovers that she had the sacred jewel, the Shiko no Tama, in her body because she is the reincarnation of a certain priestess, and the sacred jewel ends up shattering and she has to go on this journey with a half dog demon that she meets in Inuyasha. That's all I'm gonna say. As I've said, I've watched this anime so many times. I absolutely love it. It's a comfort anime. I haven't watched it in a while though. So for these next few books, these are novels, and I'm going to be going through these alphabetically by paperback and then alphabetically by hardback. First up is Miss Marple: The Complete Short Stories by Agatha Christie. This is something that I've tried to start reading in the past, but just wasn't really fully invested in at the time, mostly because of my reading slump that I've been in for a while. But in these short stories, we are following Agatha Christie's other detective, more of a homebody, neighborly, nosy detective, Miss Marple, and we are just following her as she tries to help out her neighborhood and her neighbors through a lot of the things going on in her neighborhood. Next up is The Puppy War, Book 1 by R.F. Kuang. I did a reading vlog for Babbel a while back earlier in the year. Didn't enjoy it. Someone made the comment on a TikTok review I did for Babbel saying, oh, Babbel's for people who want to relish in dark academia and love it and yada yada yada, which is valid. As I said in the video, which I think the person kind of disregarded in their comment, as I said in my review for Babbel on TikTok and here on YouTube, it wasn't for me. But I wanted to try out The Puppy War by the same author, R.F. Kuang. To read a little bit off the back here, when war orphan Rin aced the Keiju, the empire-wide test to find the most talented youth to learn at the academies, she surprised everyone: test officials, the guardians who wanted to marry her off and further their criminal enterprise, and even herself. I'm not reading past that personally for myself and for this video, just because that's all I want to know, so that's all I'm going to share. I have heard that there are some connections between the Puppy War and the Rape of Nanking. I don't want to say I'm hopeful for this book because of how Babel turned out, but at the same time, I did really like Kuang's writing style and the way she approaches certain topics, so hopefully this one will turn out better than Babel, but again, we'll see. Next up is The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. This is one that I am kind of hoping I'll read in October because it does have a mystery aspect to it. Nell Young's greatest passion is cartography. Her father is a legend in the field and Nell's personal hero, but she hasn't spoken to him since he destroyed her reputation after an argument about an old, cheap gas station highway map. When her father is found dead in his office at the New York Public Library with the very same map hidden in his desk, Nell can't resist investigating. The cover and just that description really intrigued me. This idea of a murder mystery surrounding a map really intrigues me. Starting off with the hardbacks is Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. This is another one that I am hoping to read in October, and I've heard really good things about this. I feel like for me it'll have the right amount of romance in it because I am not one who really likes romance books. I usually like it when it's a subgenre rather than the main genre. I have pretty high hopes for this one because I have heard good things about it, so hopefully it's the right amount of romance for me. As the daughter of a rancher in 1840s Mexico, Nena knows a thing or two about monsters. Her home has long been threatened by tensions with Anglo settlers from the north, but something more sinister lurks near the ranch at night, something that drains men of their blood and leaves them for dead, something that once attacked Nena 9 years ago. I'm really excited for this because it's vampires, it's historical fiction, probably right up my alley, which I'm really excited for. Next up is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshni Chokshi. That's how I've heard her name pronounced when I watched videos. This is one I'm really looking forward to. It seems so fantastical and it's gothic vibes. I don't know if I'll get to it in October, but maybe November. Once upon a time, a man who believed in fairy tales married a beautiful, mysterious woman named Indigo Maxwell Castañeda. He was a scholar of myths. She was the heiress to a fortune. They exchanged gifts and stories and believed they would live happily ever after. And in exchange for her love, Indigo extracted a promise that her bridegroom would never pry into her past. This seemed so interesting. I didn't really know a lot about it aside that it was kind of fantastical, or I didn't remember a lot of like descriptions people gave. Hopefully I'll get to it in October, but October, November, we'll see. Next up is a recent release from Elizabeth Lim, Her Radiant Curse. And this is a prequel story to Elizabeth Lim's Six Crimson Cranes duology. It's not part of the series itself, but it's set in the world and it happens years before. Chani was not born a monster, but when her own father offers her in sacrifice to the demon witch, she is forever changed. Cursed with a serpent's face, Chani is the exact opposite of her beautiful sister, Vanna, the only person in the village who looks at Chani and doesn't see a monster, the only person she loves and trusts. Now 17, Vanna is to be married off in a vulgar contest that will enrich the coffers of the village leaders. Only Chani, who has had to rely on her strength and her cunning all these years, can defend her sister against the crudest of the suitors. I absolutely fell in love with Six Crimson Cranes when I read it, and when I read The Dragon's Promise, its sequel, again, I was still so in love. This one is probably going to be more of a November read for me. And then last but not least is Song of Silver Flame Like Night. I always want to say Song of Silver Flame and Night because we always have those titles in fantasy of the blank of blank and blank, so I keep having to look at the title to make sure I'm saying it right. Now with this book, I mainly got it because of the cover and the colors on it, but I read the description and it honestly really intrigued me. Once Lan had a different name. Now she goes by the one the Elysian colonizers gave her when they invaded her kingdom, killed her mother, and outlawed her people's magic. She spent her nights as a song girl in Hakgong, a city transformed by the conquerors, and her days scavenging for what she could find of the past. Anything to understand the strange mark burned into her arm by her mother in her last act before she died. When I read that, I was like immediately intrigued, like I know I need to pick this up. I saw this at Barnes & Noble and every time I would pass it, look at the cover and just move on, and then it was finally like, okay, I'm gonna pick this up and take you home. I was really intrigued by that description. Who could pass up a cover like this with a dragon on it? That is it for this video. Thank you all for watching and I'll hope to see you in my next video.